Next, from the state capitol, we talk with State Representative Jeannie Ives, a freshman Republican representative from Wheaton. We get her thoughts on managing the state's fiscal crisis and what her impressions are of how the legislature approaches the budgetary process. This runs about 10 minutes.
State Representative Jeannie Ives, thanks for joining us on the Illinois Channel, and again for the first time. Just briefly tell us, when were you elected and what areas do you represent?
I was elected in the 2012 election and took office January 9th, 2013, so this is my second year. And I actually reside in Wheaton, but I represent the northeast section of Naperville, most of Lisle, all of Winfield, and parts of Carroll Stream, Winfield, and West Chicago, or Warrenville.
How would you describe yourself philosophically as your approach to governing?
I think in terms of liberty principles, free markets, and conservative values.
And as we stand here in the end of March of 2013, or 14 rather, we're just about to hear the governor's address. As you have been now in the legislature for a little bit of time, what are your impressions and what do you hope to hear? Let's take it one at a time. What do you hope to hear from the governor? What do you think we should be doing relative to getting the state's finances back on track?
Well, considering that after this, the 2011 tax increase, we will have taken in $31 billion before it's supposed to sunset, it's interesting to note that what you hear from the Democrat side really is that they think that we need some additional revenue. And I actually want to hear from the governor how he thinks that we can cut spending. We passed that tax increase knowing that we needed to raise the revenue to perhaps pay off our back bills and get some pension payments under control. Unfortunately, our back bills are almost the same. Of that $31 billion increase, only $3 billion went to back bills. About $16 to $17 billion actually went to pension payments, and then we're wondering what happened to the rest of the spending, because you don't actually see it into the appropriation line. So where did that money go? And I think it's wrong to ask for more revenue without first addressing the spending issues that we have.
We're going to have to, the legislature is going to have to make a decision, I suppose, on whether to extend the tax increase. Right now it's going to go out in January. There's talk of extending it, of letting it die. There's also some people trying to get a progressive tax, which would be like the federal tax, just for the viewer's background. I would presume you're, as you just mentioned, against the extension, and I would presume also you'd be against a progressive tax approach.
Yes. Again, I think that we need to focus more about the spending that we have done and think about and actually recreate some of the programs that we have. So when we're talking about Medicaid spending, and it's about a third of our general revenue budget, what exactly are we doing to make Medicaid actually more accessible to individuals and more affordable for the taxpayers? I think we should go more to a premium support system, which basically channels these people in a normal way into a plan like you or I would have, and actually then just support them based on their income level. I think we have way too much management involved in some of that. I think it's a shame that we got rid of our Maximus contract. So I'd like to see some private contracting of certain government entities. I'd like to see redoing of the Medicaid reform and certainly pension reform. We still are going to continue to pay 20% of our general revenues towards pensions because we have not done substantial reform. And we need real, true pension reform that is modernized like you see in the private sector.
Now, of course, there was a pension bill last year. It's going to be challenged in the courts. Our lawsuits have been filed.
Yes.
Do you think what is your impression of the reforms that were made in last year's bill?
I initially voted for Madigan's first SB 1 bill and then did not vote for it in December, mainly because it asked employees to contribute less to pensions that are a third, 3 to 5 times greater than what you're going to get from your typical Social Security recipient. So they're very generous pension benefits, and I felt they were willing to pay 2% more. We had Chicago Park District pay 2% more, and we went in the absolute opposite direction. Regardless, both of those reforms were just first steps. They're not the real solution. We need real pension reform, and we did have a bill, 3303 last year, that basically said, we recognize that you are guaranteed a defined benefit. You're going to get that for what you've paid in so far, but going forward, everybody gets a very generous 401k style plan that's modeled after the SURS system.
I meant to ask you before, and as a relative newcomer, how is the reality of being in the legislature, working here in Springfield, perhaps different than what you imagined? What kind of things have surprised you, if anything?
Quite a bit has surprised me, actually. I'm a little bit dismayed by the process, I guess. I feel like things either go very, very quickly, and before you know it, you're voting on a bill that you didn't really get a look at completely, or they go extremely slowly, where you just want your bill heard by a full committee, and then you want it released. And there's no reason for this not to just be heard by the committee, passed out. There's nothing wrong with the bill. There's no amendments that need to be filed. I'm thinking specifically of my special services area tax bill that I'd like to get out of committee this week and get to the House floor. It's just a good government bill. It's one of those bills where you filed it and you know what it does, and it's really good. It's too complicated to explain now. But then when you have Democrats from Chicago come to you and say, we really like your bill, we want to be on it, you wonder why it's still stuck in committee at this level. So some things move very, very slowly, apparently at the behest of the speaker. I think he controls a lot. And other things move very rapidly and you don't get a chance to look
Now,
at it.
as a Republican, and so therefore you're a member of the minority,
Yes.
how does this work? Do you talk to Speaker Madigan ever? Do you meet with him and try to get things moving, or do you deal with Jim Durkin, who's the Republican leader? What is the human dynamic within the legislature?
Well, you work through the staffs, and the staffs actually help work with the other staffs on the other side to see what's maybe called, what may be going forward, what issues they may have, what are the associations coming in and saying about your bill. So that's all good. I mean, but Mr. Madigan's got a lot to run. I understand that. So his committee chairs are very good. You go to the committee chairs and you ask them about your bill and if they have problems with it and what they see, and they're more than willing to work with you, which is really good. It's just it seems like the process takes a lot longer sometimes than you want it to.
Knowing what you know, and we know you have to leave for a committee very shortly here, but in general, are you encouraged or discouraged about the next several years here in Illinois and turning this financial crisis around?
I want to be encouraged. I can't help but be discouraged because I think there's really a lack of recognition of how deep our financial problems are. And not just at the state level, but our municipalities are also suffering deeply. Now, the fortunate thing is Chicago is in a box. They're about 3 levels above junk bond status. And that's dangerous. It's a very dangerous place for them to be. They can't afford their budget that they're looking at right now. They've got to come to the state for relief on pensions and other issues. They're the precursor to things happening in other municipalities and at the state level. Their problems are our problems, and I want people to recognize that we need real substantive reforms in a lot of different areas in the state of Illinois. We cannot push this down the road any further. Unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people unwilling to recognize how bad it is financially for our state.
You're watching the Illinois Channel, an independent nonprofit corporation formed to provide gavel-to-gavel coverage of Illinois state government and other public affairs events taking place across Illinois.